You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lane. We talk every week about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And the gardeners have been out and about. They've been pent up inside too long, and they're being inspired. So we are starting to see that leading indication of customers, gardeners in the garden center. And also, we're getting truckloads of stuff right now. So you're seeing we got our first load of fruit trees. And so got the most stunning. I've never seen red delicious apples this beautiful. Comis pears, gorgeous. Got some Carpathian walnuts. These are the soft shell walnuts. Beautiful. Stunning. Oh my goodness. Trees that are of fruiting age. Here's something to watch while you're out and about, just going off on trees. We've got a lot in store for you today. We've got some newcomer advice, what to look for as the season takes off, what to look for in your gardens right now that I'm seeing in my own gardens, and then some more events that are scheduled for the spring season. But right now, trees, we're starting to get tree loads of stuff in. So Monday, we've got evergreen, an entire semi-load of just evergreen spruce, pine, fir. Fruit trees have come in. Shade trees, the aspens are here and they're stunning. Maples, they're here. They're stunning. So I was going out and about in the marketplace, competitors, shopping their garden centers, just seeing what they have in stock. There's not much out there. It's surprising how little. The weather's so nice. It's perfect time to be planting. Why they're waiting, I don't know. But a little bit's coming in. And I'm going to the box stores, going to just different folks in the central highland area of Arizona. And I'm noticing trees. There's two styles of trees, two qualities of trees. Here's what to put on your radar, because trees are those things, if you buy an ugly tree, they only get uglier as they get larger. If you buy a beautiful tree, it only gets more beautiful and majestic as it grows up. Be careful with your trees. You can slop in a red tip photinia, Russian sage. It doesn't matter. Get the small one, it'll grow big. Get the ugly one, you can bring it back. But a tree, not so. When it's got a dog leg in the trunk, that's it. It's going to always have that bow in that main trunk area. If it's root bound, I was finding root bound trees at some of the box stores. You could see the roots spinning around in circles. Once those roots start spinning, turning in a direction like that, they never stop. Some folks will say, oh, well, root prune it. That'll correct it. It's been my experience. It never stops. They're just trained. Oh, I know I have to grow in a clockwise direction. Root pruned. Send all new roots in a clockwise direction. It just becomes this root-bound mess. You don't want that for your yard, because what happens in the mountains of Arizona, where we have limited soil, and so you want that plant to be put in the ground, prep the soil right, and we'll go over that in a bit. It starts to use up that soil, and when it bumps into the next rock or next caliche layer that runs out of soil, it just spins around in circles, and about 5 years later, it dies. It magically, in the middle of summer, just collapses. It's because it was root bound. The roots spun round and round. They never went out into the surrounding soil, ran out of soil, and then croaked, just keeled over, died right there. And then you're thinking, oh, I did something wrong. It must be me. No, it wasn't you. What you were sold was a tree from last year that didn't sell. And so they potted it into the next largest pot. We call it shifting in the industry. We shift the pot from one size to the next size. It was root bound in the smaller size. And once it starts growing like that, you put it into the next biggest size. It keeps doing that. It keeps growing. So I was finding two styles at garden centers, especially the low end, let's say box, that kind of stuff, the marts. They've got $100, it was $109 10, 15-gallon size tree. That's about right. That's in the marketplace. That's fair. It was a nice tree. It looked good. And then right next to it, they had $49 15-gallon tree. Oh, what a value. Oh, my goodness. and you look into the roots and you're going, oh my gosh, that thing is a nightmare. Roots are going round and round. It's already run out of space and they want me to take it home and plant it? No, I would never torture myself or my gardens that way. So watch for that in your plants as the season comes on. What'll happen is some of the growers will lowball these plants because they know they're root bound. They can't make them go another year. They must get rid of these, and so they put a lowball price on them. They come to this with me. They come to me going, hey, got a great deal on these trees. I'm going, yeah, but they're garbage. Why would I sell that to my customers? It's just not right. Well, it's a great price point. I don't care about price points. I care about quality and a healthy tree that will live forever and ever. When you plant a tree, it should outlive you. It should outlive you and your kids. It should outlive you and your dogs. It should be there for decades and decades, not 5 years, run out of room, die. So watch that. That's one thing to watch. And it's an injustice that growers do that some retailers will sell in the marketplace. Just be wary and do your homework. Do your due diligence. You'll be perfectly fine. Just do your homework. But there were two price points. $100 tree, I sell the same thing for $100. This was $109 at a big box, but it was a nice looking tree. It wasn't root bound. Had good tree, had a structure going to it. But then they had the low ball tree right next to it just to make it look like they had cheap trees. They did. They were garbage trees. So just do your homework before you start buying and check. Even if you're coming to our place, check. Do your due diligence so you know you're getting a good tree. Shrubs, that can happen with shrubs, but it's harder because they move faster. They're smaller. They're lower price point. So it's easier to turn trees through the garden center faster so they never really get root bound. And an ugly shrub like a red tip photinia, the number one seller, like Russian sage, a big blue shrubby plant that you see growing up about hip high throughout the mountains of Arizona. Easy to grow. It's a weed. Just put it in the ground, watch it grow. But trees and some of your bigger shrubs and your ornamental, let's say it's a serpentine birch or a serpentine weeping atlas cedar, something specialized. You really want to get a good quality specimen with a good root. It's the most important thing. One other thing while I'm on my soapbox, if you don't mind, thanks for listening to the rant. Sometimes I go on. Thank goodness Lisa's in the studio. She'll come in here in a minute, kind of going, Ken, what were you talking about? But Bareroot Roses. There's roses every place. The grocery stores got them. The drug stores got them. The box stores, the hardware stores, gardeners. Everyone's got Bareroot Roses. If you're listening to me and you're in northern Arizona, stay away from that garbage. Bareroot rose, what that means is it was grown in the ground, this rose. They take a harvester that goes in and cuts all the roots off. They lift it up out of the ground and all the soil comes off the roots. So there are no fine root hairs. They'll put it into a bag or they'll shove it into a plastic bin. They'll fill it with newspaper, sawdust, something to keep the roots moist. They go, here's a rose for $10, $12, $15. Plant it and be happy. Bareroot roses in an arid, dry climate where the soil is very alkaline really struggles. So you need a root stock. You need root mass. You need some fine root hairs to get through this dry climate that we have. We're about to hit. You're going to put that plant in the ground. It'll send off new leaves. This prevailing southwest dry wind will blow on that plant, those new roots, new foliage, and just dry it right out. And so you'll find when I was selling Bareroot roses back in the day, I'd have 40% loss. And I'm giving customers information on how to do it, handouts and all the parts to make it the most success. Still high loss rate. We are now taking our Bareroot. We planted it up last fall. We've been rooting it out all winter, and now we've got it looks like a Bareroot plant, but it's in a fiber pot that's fully rooted. So now you will get 90+% a success rate. You'd have to blunder your way to kill it. If you prep it at all, it's in a fiber pot, so you plant it pot and all, and you just get bigger roses this year. It will actually be a rose bush this year. You get a beautiful rose right now, and you get the newer varieties by planting now. So that's the difference between a Bareroot rose and one that's rooted rose. You want a rooted rose so your success rate goes up. You don't want to go through all that work and half the plants, half the bushes die. So that's more of a humid, more acidic soil area. They'll plant Bareroot, not in the Southwest. It's just not worth the energy, the money, or the time. Be right back.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
Hi, Ken with the plants of the week and our majestic giant pansies.
Mammoth blooms smother this 12-inch plant right through winter.
Fragrant like its fairy-faced cousin, this giant bloomer has the perfect balance between evergreen foliage and flower brightness.
Hardy and carefree, this local pansy brings the garden back to life, all for just $5.99.
You'll only find them at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Where people who love majestic pansies, they love to shop.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
All right, we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio, and she brings each week the garden questions that other gardeners are asking. So what's going on? And you pick up a lot just by tuning in and listening over someone's shoulder and picking up on the questions and hearing the answers for other gardeners, your neighbors down the street. So Lisa and I just share these each week. Welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So you have been busily getting truckloads of plants in. I don't know how you do it. So you and the team are just doing great. So I'm just in charge of making sure the facility runs smooth, marketing, promo, and you're like,
I'm glad you do something.
yeah. I'm in charge of travel.
Where are we going?
Let's go visit a farm or cruise someplace. Or last week it was Tucson.
Yeah.
We were part of the INA, Independent Nurseries of Arizona. It's a co-op we put together decades ago. And we get together twice a year, once in the desert in the winter. And we get together once in the summer in the mountains. And so it's just the biggest garden center in each marketplace. There's pretty much one garden center in each major city, from White Mountains from north to south to east to west. And this year it was Tanque Verde in Tucson. That's where we stayed. So you want to be inspired to take on the season that's about to
I'd never been there. It was beautiful.
It's a dude ranch extraordinaire. Everything's included. The food is over the top. I mean, the breakfast buffet is worth so much.
You did enjoy the breakfast
buffet. I did indeed. Horseback riding and all the other stuff. Then we went to go visit a friend's garden center. The newest garden center in the country is Mesquite Valley Growers. This is a magnificent thing. It's gorgeous. So we got to hear from the owner. He gave us the personal tour, just his vision of the garden center, what it's going to be.
It had been his dream for a long time. I mean, he's been in business quite a while.
Oh, yeah, 30 plus years.
Right.
He travels the world looking at garden centers. He brought all those ideas back and put this garden center together. Yeah. We could never do that in Prescott.
It's the Taj Mahal.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It takes a million plus people to support it, but Tucson's got that, and they're gardeners down there. They love that high desert stuff.
It's beautiful.
Then we got to visit a grower, Sabano's Nursery, down in South Tucson. Seen a new farm coming online that just does growing production. He is supplying southwestern plants from Austin to San Diego and everything in between. And he's a major grower for us. He custom grows our baskets. And so
That's a very nice job.
Guy was inspiring.
It was.
I'm ready to go for spring. Chris, bring up the order. We want it now.
Yeah, definitely gets you in the mood when you start
does.
seeing things and get the sages and their bright red colors and some lavenders. I mean, it was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gets
So
you in the
I'm
mood.
ready to go.
Yeah.
So, but we're back from the road trip, and now we've got to do gardening. My back's a little sore right now, just from moving plants around, displays.
Yeah, we have been getting some big trucks in, so
Yeah.
it's nice to fill the nursery back up.
Yeah, big trees. You got 2 more acres to go.
Now I'm tired.
That's a lot. Anyway, this is not about our travels or just the nursery,
sure
but it's
it
about
is.
garden questions. They do get to live vicariously a garden center owner's life through us.
Which everybody would want to live, right?
Well, I don't know about
Garden
that.
center.
It's a physical job, but it's exciting. You never
Keeps
get bored.
you young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of questions we got this week?
Questions. Our first question is from Sherry, lives in Prescott, turned her irrigation system off for the winter, which
Yeah.
a lot of people do. But now she goes, I'm thinking maybe I should water. It's been so dry. But she wants to know, will that encourage the trees to bud too early?
Oh, good
and
question.
then get damaged if we have some cold weather?
Sure, good question. Now, no, so moist plants is counterintuitive. In fact, if you see a cold snap coming, you should water your plants, especially flowering, fruiting things. Like we're harvesting kales and Swiss chard. We've got pansies galore, ornamental snapdragons. We've got a lot of color. If we see it's going to go from really nice, like we've been, to it's going to be in the 20s, we'll water things. Because a hydrated plant, it keeps the antifreeze within the structure of that plant fluid. So it keeps it going. A dry plant gets damaged. It's just the opposite of you and I. If we get wet and we're outdoors and it's going to be sub-zero, we're like frozen. Not plants. It's not about the soil or how cold they are. They're going to take on the ambient temperature, whatever that drops to, whether they're wet or dry. What you want to do is keep that moisture going in the structure of the plant. So when a plant gets dry, it can't move the antifreeze. It's naturally occurring in that structure of that plant. So you get what we call winter kill or winter burn. The concern I have with that question is, I turned my drip irrigation off in November, and I haven't watered until just now.
Ouch.
That's a long time. We haven't had enough moisture to carry it, so you might have already done that damage whether you water things or not. You should water about twice a month, a deep soak, sporadically. Just water things to keep them hydrated. And so I would say definitely turn the system on or water by hand. Water your plants, but then don't overdo it. They don't have foliage. They aren't in bloom. I wouldn't up that water system until you see foliage and flowers on things. So when the forsythia are in full bloom, start watering them. When your apples and peaches and cherries are in bloom, that's your cue to start watering. And so that won't be another month from now. So 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, then we're starting to water more frequently. For now, sporadically a deep soak twice a month.
Okay.
That's it.
Good answer. So Tom wants to know if it's okay to plant, even though there again we'll probably have some more cold weather again.
It's a concern. That's the desert folks. The flatlanders are all worried about that. Can I plant now? I'm in the mood. Can I plant? Absolutely. No worries. The ground is not frozen, even remotely, even on the ridge tops. Go for it. The secret's going to be when you put it in the ground, keep it watered twice a month, just like we just covered. Water it sporadically, deep soak it to keep it. It'll actually start rooting. The buds will start getting larger on the tree, from lilacs to fruit trees to flowering pears to aspens, everything in between. You're perfectly fine. Just water them sporadically. Don't plant and let them go until spring hits in April. They're going to need some moisture. I would encourage you, it's best to plant before they wake up.
Oh, definitely.
Less transplant shock. It's easier on the plant by doing it now. I would say stay away from your summer things. I mean, it's not the time to plant tomatoes or eggplant. They like the summer. Yeah. But it is okay to plant, say, lavenders, rosemaries, it's Swiss chard, lettuce. You could probably seed radishes right now and they would love it. So I would think you'd be perfectly fine. So there's a whole series of cool season things to plant. Plant those. Your trees and shrubs, plant those. Spring bloomers, plant those. And then wait on the summer things. The summer things we usually wait until Mother's Day. That's kind of the locals cue or holiday for summer things after the frost date. They'll go in after Mother's Day. Let's say for this Central Highland area. Memorial Day for the White Mountains, Flagstaff, Williams, that higher elevation stuff, Heber Overgaard. You folks are going to wait till the end of May before you really start planting summer things. So absolutely, you are in the peak of things right now. You can plant. Go for it. We just got in like 100 forsythias. All the lilacs are here. We're unloading Monday. All the evergreens, they're here. They're best planted before they wake up in spring. So I would say definitely it's an okay time to do it. I know it's hard for you folks from Palm Springs and Southern California and Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tucson, but definitely it's an okay. You folks from the Midwest, you understand. It's best to do it now, but it's an education thing and a faith thing and a belief thing. Be right back with Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
If you are new to the area, some things you want to watch here in this Central Highlands, actually all of northern Arizona, we're all the same. There's a couple zones back or forth. Let me just go over zones, frost dates, some things that will be different than any other place you've gardened in the country. And so Arizona is unique. We know that. That's why it's so majestic. So the weather's so nice, and it'll turn on us. You get these weather swings, wind, sun is more intense at high altitude, and just the water is a true enemy. But let me go over some of the zones and some of the what you need to put on your radar and how to research the plants. So if you do a search online, comes up with the perfect plant. I want a red flower that grows to 3 feet high and takes full sun and grows, and it's in our zone, but it's for Pennsylvania zone or New York or Chicago or LA or wherever. It may or may not grow here, and we're the same zone. So zones are one thing, but then you got to get into, there's some other variables besides just the zone. The growing zone is how cold will that plant go to. So in the mountains of Arizona, most of us are a zone 6, 7, or 8. So that means, let's say Flagstaff, you guys are really a zone 5. You need plants that can go below 0 degrees, because some years it'll go below 0. Not this year, but some years it will. And so you want to plant a plant that can take on a very bitter, cold winter. It's how much antifreeze that plant has growing up and down the structure of that plant. That's what the zone, how they determine that. Prescott in this Central Highlands, I'd say Highland Pines to really Paulden. You all out there at the base of that mountain out in Chino Valley, North Chino, that cold air spills off the ash fork and settles on top of you. You're a whole zone colder. I would say you're a zone 6. You need plants that can go down 2 zeros, single digits to 0. Prescott in the Central Highlands, we're zone 7. We need plants that can go down to about 10 degrees, plus or minus about 5 degrees. So that's a cold hardiness thing. This zone 8 is going to be everything around Prescott Valley, all the way out that 69 corridor, Cordis Junction, all the way down the hill to Cottonwood, Tanque Verde, Sedona. You guys are zone 8. You need plants that go down to 15 degrees or so. And that's what the rating is. Really, you need to memorize the zone or just go, oh, that plant will go down to 10 degrees. Oh, I don't get to 10 degrees. I'll be fine. And so that plant will winter over for you. But that doesn't describe our mountain sun. Our mountain, the extreme temperature swings. Right? It can be 80 degrees during the day and 30, 25 at night. You can get this 50-degree swing in spring. Frequently, Arizona, as a state, has got the highest temperature in the country and the lowest temperature in the country the same day. That's because of our elevation swings and desert to mountains and this huge temperature swing. That's why that messes with some plants. It can really mess with certain types of plants that aren't used to that. They can't tolerate it. They get wiped out by it. So you don't want to. On paper or on the internet behind your screen, it says, "Oh, we'll do fine," but it won't take that temperature swing. That's what you want to watch as well. So do your homework on that. Secondly, we have wind like no one else sees wind. Yeah, it gets windy we have tornadoes in the Midwest. Yeah, honey, but you ain't seen what a prevailing southwest wind with a microburst can do. It can blow over houseboats. It can blow over garage sheds. It can blow down your tree like that. And it's just a common everyday afternoon storm. That's a more intense. It's not because it's one whirling tornado-like event. It's not a whirlwind thing. It's a prevailing southwest wind that will start here in March sometime, and it won't end until really the monsoons start the end of June, first part of July. And so you want a tree that can withstand that. Some trees, especially out in the valley areas, the Chino Valleys, even Kirkland, Skull Valleys, the Prescott Valleys, these windswept areas, they're just exposed. Spring Valley, I've seen this, or Cordes Junction. You'll get these wind bursts come through, and this bigger leaf, if it's let's say a red maple, it'll just tear and rip that leaf up. And yes, the tree is alive. Yes, it is growing technically, but it's ugly as can be because it's all wind tattered. The leaves are tattered. As a tree grows up and becomes more mature, more robust, it can compensate for some of that. But when you've got a choice in maples, why not go with a red maple that'll take the wind, like Autumn Blaze, Matador, Celebration. There's this whole series of red maples that like the wind. They don't get torn up like that. They'll tolerate that. They're faster growing. They're more drought hardy than your traditional Acer rubrum or red maples you'll see in the Midwest. So you got to figure out which varieties. Yes, maples will grow here, but all of them will grow here, but not all of them will look good here. And of course, you're planting a tree for the shade, the big maple leaf, the fall color. There's a reason you want that variety. So you want to do your homework or talk to neighbors who you know have a nice one and go, hey, what kind of tree is that? Where'd you get that from? Or talk to a reputable nursery where you can talk with someone with some experience who goes, oh yeah, we found this one does well. We didn't sell this one because this one is performing so much better. So do your homework on that. Okay, so we got Lisa Waterslane coming in with more garden advice, but we got more on this Gardening for Newcomers thing. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Not everyone can grow wildflowers, but we'll make sure you're not one of them.
At Waters, we know which wildflowers sprout, thrive, and bloom with success.
We're wild about wildflowers with many of our own Arizona blends.
Like our Arizona Native Mix, Butterfly and Hummingbird mixes, and all are big, bold, and beautiful.
At Waters, we know wildflowers, and winter's a season to spread new seed.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love their flowers wild, they love to shop for seed.
And we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio, and each week she has this entire portion of the radio show all to her little self. So she can inspire us to garden better, smarter, fragrance, that woman's touch in the garden for design, style, colors, fragrance. I think women have something that men just don't grasp, or this man doesn't grasp. And so you got an hour to fill. I thought, oh, Lisa, I begged her for a year. You need to come on. You need to help us with this. So she's been on ever since. It's been like 10 years now. So.
Can't shut me up now.
No way. Wish I could. I wish I could have done that. No, I can't even say that.
Thank you. I thought I was going to have to smack you one.
Okay.
Hit you over the head with a microphone.
Don't. Okay. So this is all about you. Go for it. Inspire us.
It's just too much pressure. I'm sorry. I can't handle it.
It's pretty easy now this time of year because there's so much coming in. It's
as we
easy
get
to
more
pick an
stuff
apartment.
in, it is pretty exciting. You
Yeah.
know. Into December, January, it's like, oh, what am I going to talk about?
Houseplants.
Which we just got another shipment of houseplants in.
Beautiful.
Oh my goodness! If you've been thinking about maybe I need a few more houseplants, you've got to come down. We have expanded our houseplant area.
Oh yeah, huge.
Just huge, and so many really nice things that are easy to grow, easy to take care of, and some things that are even maybe a little. If you want a challenge, we can find something for you that's a little more challenging too.
Sometimes the hardcore gardeners get tired. You get bored with pothos all the time. You're just seeing.
I know you got to have something.
You
different.
got to have something different.
Right.
So why not?
I've been spreading my wings on the houseplants, trying to at home.
Oh yeah.
So I brought home an Aurelia, which is a really cool plant. And I'm learning how to take care of it. Usually I kind of ignore my houseplants. I go for easy ones like the ZZs.
Yeah, well, you've been busy. You
Yeah.
live a busy life. You're running big companies and lots of employees. They're always asking. Big family. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm trying different things, experimenting with them, having fun, seeing what they need, what they don't need, what kind of light. But that's an aside. But if you're looking or thinking about houseplants, come check us out.
Is that what today's topic is on? Houseplants? Oh, okay. I thought you were leading down
I
a
just
path.
got excited because we had that new shipment in, and it just some really cool
Any more
stuff.
Sansevieria?
Oh yeah.
So I wrote an article on plants that help you sleep, and that was
Mm-hmm.
one. And people were coming in with the article going, "I want this plant. Where is it? I want to need help sleeping." And there's something too. They've
Oh,
done some
definitely.
scientific studies that show you which plants will help you sleep in your bedroom.
Right. And Sansevieria is cool because it's talk about low maintenance.
Yeah,
oh my
that's
goodness.
true.
Water every once in a while, throw some food every once in a while, and that's all they need.
They work best on neglect.
And they're nice because they can take a low light and a high light. So
Well, good.
But
What
anyways,
else?
to our topic at hand, the other thing we got in were our dormant roses.
Okay, yeah.
So really good time to be putting these dormant roses in the ground. They are different from Bareroot, and I'll let you explain that.
Okay.
But we got some really cool ones in. But do you want to explain the difference? What's the
Well-
difference between like a Bareroot and then the roses that we got in?
So I've kind of gone over that somewhat in the show, and it's important. You need to know the difference and why there's pros and cons to everything. Bareroot's all about cheap. I just want a cheap rose. I don't care about quality or I want. And so you'll plant a Bareroot one, and hopefully it will take. But the death rate's very high on those. Ours are Bareroot last year. We potted them up in fiber pots, and so then they've been rooting out. So now you've got a fully rooted plant. The benefit of putting roses in now, this time of year, there's a wave. The way roses work. Earlier in the year, you get the new varieties, the latest, greatest thing, one that no one has ever seen before. You'll be the only one in the neighborhood that's got this rose. Those are the roses you'll find at the garden centers right now. Later in spring, we've got about 500, 600 roses coming the end of April. Whenever we think the last frost is kind of done, we'll bring in this entire truckload of roses, all fully rooted, fully leafed out, fully in bloom. It's fun. But you won't find the new varieties there. Those have all already been pre-sold. They're done because there's limited production of those newer names. Here it'll be all the peace roses, the Mr. Lincolns, the Chrysler Imperials. They're great roses.
Standards.
They're beautiful, but they're kind of standards. They're ones that you've seen, and they're tried and true. And you just know what red you're going to get. You know what yellow, what pink. And so those what will land, and that's the difference in the seasonality of the roses. So now we've got rooted roses. They're dormant. They're not leafed out. They're not in bloom yet. They will wake up when all the other roses wake up, and you plant that fiber pot in the ground just the way it is, and it will root out and go right through that paper pot and go right in the surrounding soil, and the way it goes. And that's
easy
that's a real
planting.
difference. Oh, yeah.
And also good for them because they wake up in their new home.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't even know they've been transplanted because they just
One thing, too, I noticed, Bareroot Rose, you never really get a good flower the first year. It's all if it takes, you'll get small roses. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they've been rooting, if they've got a full root structure, you'll have a full bush with full-on roses this year right now. So really a bare root rose you'll find, let's say, from a drugstore or a hardware store or something, mm-hmm. a box, a big warehouse. Really what you're planting for is inspiration for 2019. You're not going to get a great-looking rose bush this year. Right. That's just not what a bare root does. It's rooting. It's not growing yet.
And the other thing, and I'll get into some that I saw colors that I like, but it brought up a question for me. So many times you find these bare root roses, they're in a bag or something, but they're inside a building.
Oh, yeah.
In
it's
a store.
Yeah.
And that cannot be good, especially when you go to transplant it, right?
Well, they're tricked into waking up early. Sometimes you'll see them reaching towards the fluorescent light bulbs, emaciated and anemic and just stretching. The second you take that outside of a climate-controlled building, you put it into your gardens, that new growth is going to vaporize off. It's just going to get killed, burned off. And so it goes back to its cane. Is there enough energy left in these root structures that are bare? There's no soil, there's no real root here. Is there enough energy left for it to grow? Those are all things. I would say you never should buy a plant that goes from an inside environment and put it outside. Mm-hmm. It will never do well. You're going from the ultraviolet rays alone, the temperature swings, the wind. Mm-hmm. Just a wind element is so harsh on things. But here. People they're at the big, we won't name the name, big orange, blue, whatever mart thing. And they just see them, that's convenient. Yeah, it's got a good warranty. It better have a good warranty because it's probably going to die. And you'll probably want to take it back. And you went through this exercise for nothing. That's okay. The hole's already dug. Come to Waters and we'll get you a good plant.
There you go.
So what kind of roses?
So I went out there, was kind of checking the new ones because they put new ones out every year, and then you have your traditional ones. But there was one called Parade Day, which was striking. It has a dark fuchsia color, but it has a white stripe.
Oh,
through
neat!
That
That's unusual.
Looks absolutely gorgeous.
What's the name of that again?
Parade Day.
Parade Day. Okay.
And it was a grandiflora.
Okay.
So nice big rose. We're going to have nice big blossoms on it for you. So very, very pretty. You should check that one out. The other one they have was called Lasting Love. This is a variegated red and white. So one side of the petal is red and one side of the petal is white.
How unusual. It's like
what's
what's the other one? Ketchup and mustard?
Yes.
It's red,
which we do
and
have.
Yellow.
Red
on
and
both.
orange. Yeah, yellow.
Yeah, red and yellow. That's just an opposite. I've never seen that before.
Yes. Looks
neat.
very, very pretty. So
the name on that one again?
Lasting Love.
Lasting Love. What a great name.
Oh, just in time for Valentine's.
Get your loved one, if they're a gardener, a rose bush that will keep pushing flowers like that instead of a bouquet that will die in 5 days.
If you're into yellow, there's one called Cha-Ching. That one I think is a grandiflora too, or hybrid tea, one of the two. But striking yellow cluster flowers. So maybe it was a floribunda. Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous. I love yellow roses, probably one of my favorites. And there's some good ones that have been. There's a Henry Fonda that's been out a long time. Gold medal. But this Cha-Ching just had that cluster of flowers.
I love the
really
name.
Nice.
Cha-Ching. That's the name. What's the name of that rose? Cha-Ching.
You would like that.
So we should explain real quick. So you've got a whole bunch of tree roses out there, different varieties. You've got hybrid teas, which are the long stem roses. You've got floribundas, which is a long stem rose with a cluster of flowers, smaller, lots of them on the end. Then you've got grandifloras, which is hybrid teas and floribundas. You've got big roses and clusters of smaller roses and a little bit bigger bush all combined. So you've got all of that and more. And now's the time to put roses in the ground, especially new varieties. Well, thank you, Lisa. Roses are in and ready to be planted. The difference between bare root and rooted roses, you've got an expert right here at Waters Garden Center with Lisa Waters Lane. Be right back with more on The Mountain Gardeners with Ken and Lisa Lane.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
As the days get longer and brighter, houseplants can struggle and scorch, but we have the solution.
At Waters, we've organized our houseplants from A to Z for the brightest of sunny locations, many even bloom.
With experts that know plants and how to make them grow.
Shipments of the freshest houseplants in town have just arrived from A to Z and ready for a bright new home.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love bright green houseplants, they love to shop, found in Prescott. Okay, so we were at the bottom of the hour talking about gardening in this area. So especially if you're new to the area, what are some insider tips to look for? What's unique here that you haven't experienced elsewhere, and how do you compensate? So we'd mentioned that the zones, what that means. We want plants that can go down cold in the winter. It means zones are how cold can you get. Then we covered wind, how wind is a variable that you just don't see anywhere else like you see it in the mountains. We're just more exposed. And so those are some variables. The other one really that plays a big one is the sun. This altitude, we're at that 4, 5, 6, 7,000 foot level. That elevation, we just have less atmosphere above us, which means the intensity of the sun. You'll feel this on your face when you're just walking about. It's more intense. It's also more intense for your trees and shrubs, your plants in the yard. So what you'll find is geraniums in the south just grow out right out there in full sun. In fact, the plant tag on the flower says, grows in full sun. We'll be happy. Bloom all day long. But you plant it here, what you'll find, it will grow, but the flower only blooms for like a day and then fades. Whereas you're used to them blooming for 3 weeks at a time. And the flower's still on there looking good. It's because of the sun. The sun vaporizes them. That dry climate with the sun is too intense. I find my geraniums do better in part-day sun. So if I get them a break from that middle of the day kind of sun, they just bloom so much better. My best gardens, personally, are on the east side of my house. It gets that early morning sun. It has a radiant wall that just kind of warms things up, and they just love it. It's bright sun from first of the morning till about midday, and then has afternoon shade. Plants really thrive in that. So what you'll find is a full day sun. If the plant says full sun, in the mountains of Arizona, I really define that as full sun 6 hours or more. So our sun is so intense, it doesn't take as much sun to create that full sun experience for the plant. So it will bloom. Your fruit trees, they'll do fine with 6 hours of sun or more. It can't go less, or it doesn't have enough photosynthesis to create the sugars and the flowers to make it all happy, but it only takes 6 hours because the sun is more intense. The other one to watch is our lack of soil. We just don't have topsoil. So a lot of our soils were wind whipped and just prairie, grasses. A lot of the soil is blown away or is washed away by these monsoonal rains, this torrent of flood of rain that just comes down and washes our soils away. And so unless you're right there on the creek bottom, that's where all the soil goes to, you're left with a few millimeters, really an inch of topsoil or less, and you're coming from the northwest where you've got 3 feet of topsoil. You can just throw it in and watch it grow, and it's happy. Not so here. Here you need to be more strategic. Not only that, but the little topsoil you had, the backhoe came in and scraped it all off and put your footers and your driveway and your house in. And so some of you literally are gardening in dead soil. There's not one worm. There's nothing living in that soil. There's no fungal things. There's no mycorrhizal colonies. There's nothing living, breathing, active in that soil, which is what plants need to really root and grow. So if you have no topsoil, you're going to have to modify that soil, each planting hole. You can't do the whole yard. It's not practical. But you can buy a nice, let's say, apple tree, a nice lilac bush, or whatever that tree or shrub is. You can buy a nice one, and you can create a planting area for that plant to grow into. Once it starts growing in the outer soils, it just keeps going. So you want to create that. And here's what when you're coming in, I'm helping you here at Waters Garden Center at least, I'll tell you, you need 3 things. Do you have the 3 things to make this grow well? And it's always the mulch, you want some food, and you want a rooting hormone, a liquid root and grow is what we call it. And so you dig your hole the same depth as that root ball. So whatever depth that root is, a little 1 gallon might only be 8 inches deep. A 5 gallon, maybe 12 inches. Big 15 gallon, maybe it's 18 inches deep. But the roots go sideways, so you want to dig your hole wide. So the roots are going to go just underneath the surface of the soil because that's where other food and water is. There's no water, there's no food, there's no nothing deeper into the soil for a plant. It doesn't go down there. That's a myth. It doesn't happen. There's just more rock, caliche, and clay. But there's no more moisture, food, and things that plants need. It's dependent on you. It's up towards the surface. Even these big natives, they'll send off what I call a hockey stick. That root will go down about maybe 18, 24 inches. It hooks a right, starts running out just underneath the surface for hundreds of feet. This taproot will be running out just underneath the surface of the soil so it can pick up the moisture when it rains and pick up the nutrients when it rains. If you know that's how plants are going to grow, help them. Make it 3 times the width of your root ball, saucer shaped in the same depth. That soil that you dig out of that hole that you created, screen it. Screen anything that's bigger than a golf ball. Rocks and old roots and debris. You'll even see bricks and building construction stuff in there that the contractor buried. Screen that out. Anything bigger than a golf ball, there's nothing, the particles are too big for the water molecules to hang on to. And so it just does you more harm than good. After you screen it, you're adding about 25-30% mulch or compost to your native soil. You want to reintroduce some organics into that soil, and that's what's going to jumpstart the living organisms that are attracted to that soil. So your worms will be attracted to that, the birds, the mycorrhizal colonies, the things that make plants root. That's what's going to do it, the organic matter. So you want about a shovel's worth of mulch for every 3 shovels worth of native soil, and blend that together. Then you loosen up the roots a little bit, not a lot, and backfill that mixture around the root ball and tamp it down. That's how you plant. When I'm all done, I'll sprinkle some all-purpose plant food. I've got an organic food that I've created that's mainly cottonseed meal and bird guano and some magical stuff that makes things root and grow and leaf out some more, bloom some more. Then when I'm all done, I'll water that in with my a 2-gallon watering can with my root and grow added to it. It's a rooting hormone. And so that's the 3 things you always need. If you're planting trees, we mentioned at the beginning of the hour, if you're doing trees, you really want to stake those. With our prevailing wind, you'll see neighbors in your neighborhood where the trees are all leaning to the northeast. This is detrimental, especially for things like big evergreens. As they grow taller, they start leaning over to your garden shed and they become a hazard. They could fall down. Fruit trees, when they load up with apples or pears or cherries, they'll have so much fruit on them that they'll fall over. They literally leap out of the ground and fall over. You want your trees to grow straight. And so we have tree stake kits here. We just have 2 lodge poles, some wire, and a strap. And so you put that on either side of the root ball, tie once to that trunk to your stakes, and so you want your tree to blow and become strong, but you don't want it to lean. That stake kit is only there to keep the tree upright, but let it bend and grow and flex around, but just not lean over and have the wind have it solidify in this bent state growing to the northeast. It's kind of unique for the mountains of Arizona. I don't think you need that so much in the deserts or other parts of the country, but here in the mountains, it's critical to stake your trees really only for 1 year. If you moved into a house where it's had a previous owner, planted some trees, and you see it's a big tree, the lodge poles are still there on the tree, you don't need those anymore. It's only good for about a year, maybe 2 at most, and you can pull them off. The tree is strong enough at that point to take on itself. So time to pop those off, break them off, and the tree can go without stakes. For that first couple of years, important to stake trees. Got a whole lot more. Don't change that dial. I'll be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
I do have a handout. They're free. Whenever you buy a tree or shrub from us, we're content. We're not just selling plants. We're selling garden experiences. So we want to make sure you get all the parts so that plant will thrive in your yard. So we're always creating content and lists and how to grow things. We've got lists on how to grow a tomato, a blueberry, rosemary, trees and shrubs. And so whenever you buy one, we've got a how to plant a tree or a shrub or a vine. It's kind of what we were discussing last few minutes, but it's in detailed form. It's also how to water, how often to water. It's got all kinds of details on there. It's a 2-page thing. It's cheap for us to print, and we just give them out like candy to gardeners. And so if you want one of those, they're free. Just ask. Or if you're buying a plant, you're going to get one whether you want one or not, because we're going, here's what you need. And you need the 3 things. You have the 3 things you need to mulch, for the food and the root and grow. And so we'll make sure you got the parts so it succeeds. They're free. Take one. Next week, I have an entire class on gardening for newcomers. I think I'm going to teach this one. Today it's on gophers and vermin and deer and rabbits and all the pack rats, things that can come in and eat your gardens. We're covering how to prevent that and what plants they aren't interested in. Next week, the 17th, though, it's gardening for newcomers. If you're new to the area or you just want to up your game and get a few garden tips, you just want to hang out with really cool people that like to wear funky garden hats and colorful gloves, come hang out with us. It should be fun, and it is packed with information. I'll probably take a list and email that particular gardening for newcomers, the how to plant, with a whole bunch of other stuff. Usually I'll curate, say, the fertilizer guide. There's a whole several things that I'll give to the class members, and I wrote a book on gardening for newcomers. I'll usually email that. It's a free download. It's not a book, printed book, but you can read it with your iPad or your laptop or whatever. I usually email that to folks. Come hang out with us. It's 9:30 every Saturday. They're free to attend. They're fun. They last about an hour. And they're packed with information like we've been sharing over the show today. So that's next week, 9:30, Gardening for Newcomers. Today it's gophers. We do have a couple of important dates. Let me see if I can pull those up. We have a raptor experience, March 3rd, 9:30. We're going to fly eagles and owls and falcons and kestrels through the greenhouse. So we're going to close up the greenhouse in the back. We're going to have these huge, majestic birds swooping through. We've got some brilliant locals that do nothing but raise and teach people about raptors, these bigger birds of prey in the yard, and then how to attract them, how to have more wildlife in your yard. So we're going over that. It should be fun. So Ann and Paul Shell will be here to share that with the Arizona Raptor Experience. Come early. It's always packed. There'll be 100, 150 people here in the garden center, standing room only. If you come early, you might get a chair. Otherwise, bring your own chair and just enjoy. I would say we had over 100 people at last week's class on pruning. I should send out a huge shout out to Grant Tibbetts with Johnny's Tree Service. Johnny's, what did he call that? Johnny's Tree Service and Landscape Service. Grant is a local arborist. He's brilliant. I had to be out of town. I thought there's no better person to teach how to prune than Grant. He went into super detail, and people just ate him up. Thank you, Grant, for doing that and covering for me while I was out of town visiting grandkids, basically. It was more fun to watch grandkids and teach a class. But when you got friends in the right places, you know who to call on? Grant covered for us. That's, let's see, Raptor Experience, March 3rd. And then at 9:30, actually all weekend, March 17th through 18th, we're bringing in our farmers, the people that grow our plants. They're coming and hanging out with us. We call it Spring Open House. This is our 56th year that we're doing this. But if you want to be introduced to all the growers that grow the plants, they're going to teach the class that day and just be here to hang out. So if you're a plant nerd, you like talking to other growers and gardeners, come talk to them. They are chocked full of information. We will introduce the 2018 lineup of plants that weekend, but that's March 17th and 18th. Those are a couple of events, and it keeps going on. Look at watersgardencenter.com for more details on that. But look at March 3rd for Wrap Your Experience and March 17th, Spring Open House, our 56th here at Waters Garden Center. Throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to local gardeners. Come say hi.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
Ouch! Aw, man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.